Adrian, what the hell are you doing?
I'm looking in my crystal ball globe.
Adrian, it's all black and dark.
Shh, that's your future.
No,
I see right here you are Columbia.
No.
No?
No.
Frankenfurter?
Oh, come on.
Hold on. Darkness. I see darkness. You are a hipster.
Oh, don't start with this shit again.
And a son of a bitch. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit. I'm Adrian Fort. No one loves you. No one loves you.
It's my turn to say I'm Dalton Gentry. That's what comes after that. I'm Dalton Gentry. This is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Chapters 13 through 15.
12 through 15.
12 through 15. 13 through
13
15.
through 15?
13, 14, 15. That's 3 chapters. That's how we do this. It was 10, 11, 12 last time.
Okay.
Because you love this so much.
Shut up and get on with it.
But we're almost done with it. Not a lot of crazy excitement here. But brief rundown. Chapter 13, Gryffindor versus Ravenclaw. Ron and Hermione are still fighting, of course. We get to meet Cho Chang, Harry's first love interest. Malfoy has some fake Dementors at the Quidditch Cup, which I think there's some stuff going on there.
Yeah.
And Sirius Black's back in the castle. Ron has seen him. Chapter 14, Snape's Grudge. Hagrid preps for Buckbeak's case. Harry's head is found to be floating in Hogsmeade because Harry went into Hogsmeade. He gets caught by Snape. Lupin confiscates the Marauder's map, and Buckbeak is set to be executed. Finally, Chapter 15, the Quidditch final. Hermione is still disappearing. Now she's missing classes. Now she's dropped out of her divination class with Trelawney. Walked on out. Which,
I've done that before.
I kind of almost did. I stayed until the class was over, then I dropped it. And then I tried to avoid the meeting that I had to go have about it. And Gryffindor wins the House Cup. How incredible in words.
Yeah, okay.
So, how do you feel, Adrian?
Well, I've got a quote from 269, 270, where they've got a bunch of surly security trolls had been hired to guard her. They paced the corridor in a menacing group, talking in grunts and comparing the size of their clubs. Really, Rowling? Really? That's your comment on masculinity, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't want your shit. Speaking of not wanting your shit, let me read this real quick. Hermione flung her arms around Ron's neck and broke down completely. Ron, looking quite terrified, patted her very awkwardly on the top of the head. Finally, Hermione drew away. And on 294, "We're doing charms," said Ron, still goggling at Hermione. "We'd better go." Goddamn you, Rowling. If Hermione becomes a weasel...
A weasel?
If she becomes... We're fucking through, you and I. We are fucking through, you and I. I don't like to threaten people, but I will when I have to.
A weasel or a Weasley?
A weasel!
Okay.
They're weasels.
I thought you were going to pull the feminist card that we're allowed one per video now, with Hermione breaking down.
Oh, no, I've got one later.
I believe at one point she broke down in hysterics.
Was the word hysterics used?
I am 99% sure, because when I read it, I'm like, well, there's our one for the video.
We've got a quota.
So, yeah. If you have not read into the word hysterics, you should, especially if you're touting feminism and angry at us.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Don't bring those things up if you're not ready for the fight.
Anything really that really stuck out that you want to comment on about this?
Well, yes. We're allowed one feminist card, and are we allowed one race card?
We might. I think no one's really said they hate us for the race card yet.
Parvati and Lavender, are they minorities?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of film representations, maybe.
I don't know why I picked them. Maybe it's the names I picked up as not white-ish. But one of the things that Rowling has done fairly well, if you are reading these, and maybe not well at all if you're just judging these, she does not really mention race.
Okay.
So any of these characters could be any race that you want. If you sat down as a black child and read this, the books could be completely populated with black characters.
True.
I think that this lack of diversity in Harry Potter would be a problem with the reader, not the writing.
Okay.
Right? But, did you have something to say on that?
I think Rowling best tackles race through a fantasy setting. Moving back towards the
Right. The
house elves, centaurs, house elves. We'll get more later about numerous people. Next book, we're gonna get one that's just gonna, it's gonna drive you. Fleur Delacour may be the bane of your existence, character-wise.
Fleur Delacour?
Fleur Delacour.
Delacour.
Yes.
Why is that?
We'll get there.
Is this a minority character?
Not a minority in typical terms of race. She is half some kind of mythical creature similar to a siren.
Okay, well, that's both cards. We'll play on that one.
There's a lot of cards that we're going to be playing on that one.
It strikes me. Here's what does strike me as possibly insensitive.
Okay.
If Parvati and Lavender are meant to be minority characters, why are they the ones that are so taken aback by divinities?
Okay.
When you look at percentages of something like atheism, much higher in white people than minorities.
Correct.
Right? So is the fact that, and maybe Parvati and Lavender are not minorities, I have read this in at some point, but if so, they are the two that are really taken aback by what a professor who's preaching religion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's what divinities is. So I think that it's very interesting to look at what's going on there.
It's quite literally smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Now, since we did mention briefly on race, any fleeting thought about the fake floating Dementors set up to, for lack of a better word, spook Harry Potter?
I wish you hadn't used that word.
Would you like me to change that?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Well, go on.
That seems very much Southern American racism.
I had not caught that.
That's how I read that.
Okay.
Very much so.
I am glad you did catch it.
But that is the if you're looking at it from an American standpoint and Southern racism, especially in the 20s, that era, whatever, that is hanging up the black scarecrow,
The effigy.
or
a real person,
yeah. To scare the townfolk.
Right.
That is what that is, 100%.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. So what are you saying that the Dementors would represent?
I'm not sure if that's using the Dementors to represent something.
Okay.
But that act
you think
itself,
it's just a metaphor?
It is very metaphorical.
Not
That is the
analogy
act itself. That is what that's pushing at.
Okay.
Obviously Harry is terrified of the Dementors, and as a 13-year-old child, I would be horrified too. As an adult, I would be.
Yeah.
But that's what it is.
Yeah.
Very much so. So I do have that. I wanted to bring up that point. I usually let you just kind of run with these videos, so I can just
well, this is great. This is good. That's something I hadn't caught in there. That's what I enjoy. That's hopefully this is what's happening for viewers, right?
Okay.
Things that maybe someone just hadn't thought about yet.
From the comments section, a lot of people again still love the concept of you saying fat shaming's a thing in Harry Potter.
It is.
So we'll see what people think of this. We're talking more, I think, race and sexism, and somebody's going to be like, oh, they're talking sexism again, but, it's prevalent.
If it's in the text, it's in the text.
It is in the text.
I'm not going to apologize for that.
Any thoughts on Cho Chang, though? Harry's first love interest. We don't get much of her yet, but that is going to be a central thing. That's his love interest.
Okay, no, so, I accepted it for what it was.
Okay, that seems what it is his first real, childhood crush. I think that's the way.
Here's a touch of verisimilitude in the novel on 297. This is they're sitting in This is before she walks out of Divinity. Hermione walks out of Divinities, I believe. Yeah. This is such a waste of time, Hermione hissed. I could be practicing something useful. I could be catching up on cheering charms. I am guaranteeing you, from my own experience, that J.K. Rowling took an overload of literature courses at one time.
You think so?
You have any idea how often in my college course I'm sitting in a classroom thinking, I should be reading for my poetry class right now. I should be reading for American literature in the early 1900s right now. What am I doing?
So you said you walked out of a class. People like stories, so let's share.
Oh, I thought I shared that story last time.
Have you shared it?
I believe so. So I had creative writing. The only creative writing class I took as an underclassman, well, as an undergrad, I mean, was poetry. And again, this was when I was lazy enough to consider myself a poet, did not have the work ethic to be a writer. Okay. So the class was awful. Our first assignment was that we had to download some techno type album and listen to it. And there was no words on the whole album. 13 tracks of just...
That sounds delightful.
Miserable. It was miserable.
Okay.
So our book for the class was a book of poems written by a guy who was a guitarist in some band. And they were miserable.
Okay.
So the first week of class, second week maybe, we walk in and there's just this stack of newspapers. I'm like, what the hell's going on? So she passes out the newspapers and we're making found poetry. So for a 3-hour night class.
Very elementary.
For a 3-hour night class, we would look through a newspaper, find a line we liked, cut it out, pass it to the right, take the person's from the left. And we all made these cool found poetry, man. Found poetry. So the first round of critiques is going around. And I mean, they're poems that you would expect to find in an introductory poetry writing class. Some better than others, whatever. So we're reading them and we're critiquing. And the teacher's pet was a guy and a gal who never shut up.
Okay.
Never shut the hell up.
That's usually how it works.
And they were laughing at people. Laughing at people's stuff.
It's hard.
And whispering back and forth. And I could not... why do you want to laugh at people's stuff right in front of them, man? Like, what is it in... And they weren't good at anything by any means. So we went through that, and then it was like the next class period. We're doing something, I don't remember what it was, but night classes all have this break in the middle. So I'm sitting there, and we're getting ready to go to this break. And it was at that moment that I realized, no. Like, we're 3 minutes away from taking a break. I stand up, I put my backpack on, and I walk out of the class. And that was the end of it. Because I couldn't, that was ruining, look, I'm a big fan as a writer of saying that experience is absolutely necessary. But there are experiences that will worsen you.
Okay.
And that was getting to be one of them.
I dropped out of an education class because at one point in both of our careers we were going to teach high school English. Mistakes were made. No, the class was supposed to be, and that's why I made it very clear I was wanting to teach high school English, and this was a teaching writing class or something like that. And we were going over storybooks, like children's picture books. And the entire class was presenting how to read a storybook to a child and all this. And I couldn't do it, so that was the day I dropped my education class. I went to Danaher, and I said, and she says, why are you an education major? You know you don't like it. We both know. Just be a lit major. I'm like, okay. I had to go to a meeting, at which point that said professor had the balls, she had the balls, to tell me I was making a great mistake by dropping her class. I'm like, all right, I'm out. This was fun. So anyway, there was a small tyrant there.
Yeah.
Hermione is missing classes. She's dropping out of divination. So there's a lot going on with Hermione, and
What a little rebel.
What a little rebel. I know you have a soft spot for her. Gryffindor won the House Cup.
This was the most interesting Quidditch match that we've seen so far. Do you know why?
Why is that?
It was planted early in this novel that Wood wanted to win so bad.
Okay.
Right. So we had this...
the drive.
Not just the drive, but sort of a paranoia.
Okay.
Right? Going into the match, there was this paranoia that something was going to go wrong.
We will get a Quidditch match next book that will be professional level Quidditch.
Okay.
So...
Well, but beyond that, you have Malfoy set up as a bad guy.
Yes.
And Malfoy is on the team now.
Yes.
When it was just nameless Slytherins going around beating them for the Quidditch Cup, it was not as exciting because we didn't have the bad guy to root against. Sports are always more interesting when you know more about them.
This is true.
302, just real quick. We get the quote, Angelina, Alicia, and Katie were laughing at Fred and George's jokes. Again, you know, what strong female characters these are.
There was a comment from...
Hold on.
Go on.
Hold on. Let me think. Let me think. I am not going to have the time to do this research. If there are any shitstormers watching right now, if you could do the research whether or not any of the Harry Potter books pass the Bechdel test, I will be forever in your service. You know what the Bechdel test is?
Go on.
It's this test that feminists have set up for movies. Does it pass the Bechdel test? Well, one of the things is like, are there two female characters who share dialogue together? Now, is that dialogue about something other than a male? Does that happen in Harry Potter?
I don't know.
And there are several things like that, but if you miss one, you fail the test, right?
Can we Bechdel test Harry Potter?
Bechdel test. Someone, please, for the love of God, Bechdel test Harry Potter. Because if I'm taking all of this heat because I am making Harry Potter out to be sexist when it's not, but it doesn't pass the feminist test of what is and is not sexist in art, then I will have a trump card.
I think we have a video series coming up.
We very well might.
Anyway, you did get a little heat. I failed to mention this comment to you about talking about girls giggling about, you know, Cedric Diggory.
Okay.
Apparently that is a normal woman's reaction to seeing an attractive male.
Well, no, it's a normal reaction to being attracted to someone. Okay. That's why it's not sexist. My huge point with this is...
That's the only part of that was included.
No. My big point with this is, just because it's included and does not mean... Okay, so that's what those women do when presented with that character. That is not sexist. And it is not sexist when J.K. Rowling does it, and it would not be sexist when Chuck Palahniuk did it. It would not be sexist when Neil Gaiman did it. It would not be sexist when Steven Spielberg put it in a movie. Okay? It is those characters' reaction to that thing. But if we are holding it that it would be sexist in a Spielberg movie, if we are saying that it would be sexist in a Palahniuk novel, in a Vonnegut novel, in some random piece of something that I write, if we're holding that as sexist, then you're doing it with Harry Potter too.
All right.
We're going to be there. So that's my big point with this.
I really want to go through and test these now. I think that'd be a blast. Because I have no life and I see that as a hobby. So.
We'll have to get the rest of the questions for the Bechdel test.
We can figure it out. Any thoughts about Buckbeak and his looming execution?
I get the sense that it's not going to happen strictly because this is a children's book.
Okay.
It would get very large kudos from me if Rowling went ahead and put that in there.
Okay.
Other than that, like, are you asking about symbology or?
I just want to know your thoughts and feelings about it.
Yeah, I haven't picked anything up on a real big. I think this is just look. I don't remember what book it was that we read recently, but someone killed a dog, and I believe maybe it was in
Puppy.
Yeah, it was in Puppy. Okay, so as soon as an animal is killed, someone's the bad guy.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So that might be something thrown in here if it goes through that is just to make Malfoy the ultimate villain here.
Okay. Anything else you really want to touch on here? Not a lot really happened in these 3 chapters.
Yeah, these were pretty standard chapters.
Okay.
Nothing that really staring into the crystal ball when you read about it sounds a lot like meditation.
Okay.
If you're into it, it's profitable. If you're not, you're just sitting there. Right?
Okay.
Like that. I don't know how into meditation you are.
Not.
But that's how that feels. If you're not into meditation, you're sitting there quietly. If you know what you're doing and you're into it, then you are profiting for the rest of your day.
Okay. Very interesting.
So that's how that divinations class felt a little bit.
All right. Well, we will continue forward next week. With 3 more chapters of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And we're going to near the end of this, so we will do our, conclusion, finale, ultimo.
No, that will actually, there's 22 chapters.
We'll have to figure out, it's going to be an odd number set up.
So we will have a video with 1 chapter, but then the rest of our thoughts on the novel.
Okay, but that'll be okay. That's fine. We'll end the novel with that.
And most of the time when we do that ultimo with 2 or 3 chapters, we're talking less about those chapters and more about the book anyway. So
if you do want to join us for the rest of the Harry Potter series, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like. We'd really appreciate it. Adrian?
Follow us on Twitter @StripCover and on Facebook @StripCoverLit. Dalton sucks.